Good morning to everyone. And thank you, Dawn. Thank you, Little You, for inviting me for this as guest speaker series. I'm very honored to be here. So before I start, Dawn actually mentioned in her teaser that it is Singapore's most expensive shop house. So I wanted to add that actually it is the most impactful shop house. So I'm very happy to be working in this role as General Manager of Temasek Shophouse. And yes, so today I'm going to show you a little bit of what we do. I'll give you a little bit of an insight to what we do day to day in Temasek Shophouse, some of our plans, as well as share a little bit about my personal journey, how I got here doing what I love to do. So in the picture that you saw just now, there was one shop house. We are actually closed right now, unfortunately. So for some of you who have never been there to Temasek Shop House, I'm afraid to say that it's akang tatang. You have to wait for about another year or a year and a half as we renovate and as we restore some of the other shop houses that are adjacent to the current shop house as well. So all 4 shop houses, we call this Temasek Shop House 2.0. All shop houses will be restored to its former glory and better. And we are turning this whole row of shop houses along Orchard Road in Dhoby Ghaut to become the largest social impact hub in Singapore. So what really does a social impact hub mean? And what do we do in this Temasek Shop House? I will give you a bit of an insight to what we do day to day. So some of the things that we do as a social impact hub, it's that we encourage businesses with purpose. We support social enterprises, and they can come in different forms. So for example, within Temasek Shop House, there is a coffee shop. And this coffee shop, it's called Forward Coffee. Dawn loves this coffee shop very much. It's a local social enterprise cafe that hires people with special needs, and they give them employment opportunities so that they can become independent and so that they can live life with dignity. So it started by 2 young, passionate graduates, from NUS. And when we first discovered them, we thought that their business model was great, and we wanted to support them to support people with different needs. So since we brought them into Temasek Shop House from a very small outfit of 1 to 2 cafes, they have now branched up to about 7 locations island-wide. So we always believe that a location like Temasek Shop House give the turbo boost to young social enterprises and give them exposure and help them to network better so that they can do their business better. So with this coffee shop in Temasek Shop House, what they do very oftentimes, the owners, they also do sharing sessions, coffee brewing workshops, etc. for the community and for young and aspiring social entrepreneurs as well. So it's a very nice space. I think the photo that you see right at the bottom here, that's a very nice space that community gather together to learn. We work with companies, local companies. We source out local companies like Samula. Samula is a local plastic recycling company. So if you can see some of these signboards or table chairs that are blue and white in color, Samula focuses on zero waste environment, and they try to promote sustainability through giving waste materials a new life. So this blue and white coffee tables and chairs are actually made from Meiji milk bottles. So some of you would remember that, the very famous Meiji milk bottles, they're blue and white in color. So after going through a certain process, using technology, etc., you can actually upcycle them and give them a new lease of life. So we try to do a lot of show and tell via the furniture, via things that we display in Temasek Shop House, letting people, letting community, letting kids learn about what sustainability is all about and what innovation is all about. Another thing that we love doing is we love turning strangers into neighbors. So we work with people in the precinct. Temasek Shophouse has the advantage of being on Orchard Road and having great neighbors like SMU, SOTA, LaSalle, etc. So we work a lot with the youth in the neighborhood to work on different projects. So this was an interesting project. We engaged the youth community within SOTA. So a lot of them are very good with the arts, right? So we work with them via numerous workshops to talk about what the sustainable world is. How can you combine planet, peace, people, progress, into an imaginary art form? How would you paint for us what the tomorrow, what tomorrow looks like? So they came together, they workshop, they drew on paper, they threw away lots of ideas that they didn't like, and they painted our wall with a very, very beautiful image there with, birds. It's a world where birds and living creatures and dogs and cats and people are coming together, where trees are still green and oceans still blue. So that's how they have imagined a better tomorrow can look like. We worked with SMU as well, again, through a series of workshops to engage their students across different faculties as we collaborate with them on a real project. So in the Temasek Shophouse 2.0, as we expand and as we broaden our physical landscape of being a social impact hub, we are also taking over Pocket Green, a park as well. That's the park, if you remember, just before you cross to Cathay Cinema. So that's an open plot of land there. But we didn't want just experts and consultants and, people who are in their special fields to come and do design work for us. We want young people and we want students to come and tell us what would they want in a park, what do they do in a park, right? So we had numerous workshops with them on centering on design thinking and innovation to allow them to give us input on a park that they would like to see and use in future. This is another thing that we do quite well. We try to uplift communities working with inclusive music groups. So when we talk about inclusive music groups, they are groups with different abilities. We partner with musicians from Purpose Symphony. They have kids, adults with different needs, playing with just ordinary people as well. So they perform for audiences in Temasek Shophouse. We also work with people in art disc and a cappella society for different types of performances within Temasek Shophouse. So we often believe that music is a universal language and music can bring people together. It can foster common humanity. When you play music, sometimes it doesn't matter whether you are young, whether you're old, whether you can see, whether you are blind, whether you're male, female, you all come together and you create beautiful music for the audience. So that's something that we want to harness. Another thing that we've done very successfully just before our shutdown is this thing called Temasek Shophouse Let's Jam Music Fellowship. So this is a series that was co-curated by our local musician, Clement Chow. Some parents here may remember that he was the composer, musician for Count on Me Singapore, a very famous National Day song. And he worked with us to bring a lot of elderly musicians together because, these musicians used to play for Singapore, used to play for big concerts, but now in their 70s and their 80s, they may not be hired for cafes, restaurants, weddings, and all that anymore, but they can come together and they can continue to do what they like to do. So our Let's Jam Music Fellowship has been a very encouraging event. When we first started this, maybe about 40 to 50 people came together. When we ended this, more than 200 people gathered in our community, cheering each other on as they play wonderful music together. Okay, so we also get creative with community organizations. When we say music, it's a common language for everybody. So it's art, so it's design. So we use that to bond people together. We work with creative groups such as Aya. Aya is an educational platform. They use very eye-catching artworks and illustrations to create engaging learning materials for children out there. So we worked with them in December 2022, and it was an exhibition for mental health awareness, and it's an illustrated guide to guide kids what anxiety is about and how to combat that. And then we also work with local artists as well to do different fun stuff. So when we turned 4 years old, just last June, we came together with some local artists and we created this fabric tie-dye exhibition in our garden. It was called A Project to Die For, and it's really very creative, but it's very significant as well. It's not just any other tie-dye projects, but we did this because we wanted this to be a memory of how Dhoby Ghaut got its name. Dhoby Ghaut got its name because the Indian washermen, they used to be called the Dhobis. They used the Stamford Canal as their laundry washing area. And that was the historical fun fact of Dhoby Ghaut. And we wanted kids to learn about history as well. So we used this Project to Die For to help people understand how Dhoby Ghaut got its name. We also created, different exhibition, creating a Walls of Fame to celebrate the tribute to the golden era of Singapore films, because Cathay, our neighbor next door, it's really was closing down also, and they were one of the first cinemas in Singapore as well. So now let's get a little personal, and I'll be sharing with you my personal journey and how I got to do something so interesting. So just now, Dawn asked, right, what does a general manager in Temasek Shophouse do? The name really much says very much what I do. It's general management of the building, of the Temasek Shophouse building. I take care of all the events that comes in, that goes out, the community that we're building, the co-working spaces that we are leasing out, anything from the infrastructure, from the hardware to the software, in people and building bridges and all that. I take care of everything within that. Of course, I've got a team that works with me. I do enjoy my work very much. So I remember there was this one day when I was driving to the office, and as I passed by Temasek Shophouse on Orchard Road, I thought to myself how lucky I am and how privileged I am to be looking forward to work every day, to be happy and to be motivated to go to work. I don't think a lot of people, especially in Singapore, can say that. So I count myself as one of the very, very lucky and the very, very blessed ones. So I want to tell you about how I get here. So this is a picture of me and my loves. Besides loving work and loving to go to the office, I actually do love going back home every day as well. I come home to these 3 lovely men, my husband, and I've got 2 boys. This was a picture taken some years ago. So my younger son, it's no longer as carryable as what you see in the photo now, but still really, really cute. And I'm enjoying this stage of raising 2 young teenagers as well. So this is me now. I mentioned just now what I do day in, day out, and it's very common to see me on a platform, on a stage, giving a presentation, addressing people in the audience, welcoming people to Temasek Shophouse, and that's what I do day on day. But this was me then, right? So we all had a past. We all had a really cute past. This was me. Maybe I was primary 1 or so. I can't quite remember. Very, very young, and I was just like cycling around the house. So what happened between then and now? And what was that journey, going from a little younger who didn't quite know what life is going to throw her, and now where I am quite happy with the way life is and really grateful for every day what happened, right? So that's a very, very famous saying: the journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step, right? So everything begins with a single step. And as I think through my life, I think there were several very pivotal steps that I have taken that allow me to just go from A to B to C to D, and eventually to get to where I am. So I'm going to share some of these steps with you. So first steps, we all took some first steps when we were younger, right? And some of us took our first steps, first accomplishment when you're 2 years old, when you're 1 year old. I feel that a huge memory in me, it's this first accomplishment, first step that I took when I entered myself into a literature competition in primary school. I think I was probably in primary 6 or something. I can still remember the first paragraph of the dramatic poetry that I wrote, and I've typed it down here for you. It's a satire of actually what the love story Romeo and Juliet is about. I entered this competition, and I think at that time I wasn't expecting anything. Because I didn't grow up speaking English at home. I grew up in a Mandarin speaking family, and as I entered into P1, I remember feeling very intimidated. And I remember one day, I think probably my first week of school, I was punished for what I thought was drinking water. I was punished, and I was made to stand outside the classroom for a long time. And only after talking to my friends, I realized that I was punished wrongly, because the teacher asked who is dreaming, and I didn't know what dreaming was. I didn't know the word, and I thought she asked who was drinking. And I put up my hand and bravely said, yes, I was drinking. So I got punished, and I was standing outside the classroom for a while. So that was my background. So for someone who didn't speak much English at P1, to someone who was willing to put herself out there to participate in a literature competition, and actually won the competition for the poetry that I wrote, was actually quite something. I mean, to me, that was a first accomplishment, but it was forever etched in my memory, because to me, that was the first taste of victory and the first taste of what I can achieve and what I can do. So I think for young people, that first sense of victory and the first step to accomplishment, it's really important. I can still remember it 30 plus years later, so it's etched in the memory. So the next step, so how does one thing lead to another, right? So the next step, I feel it's a step up in confidence. So remember what I said about winning the literature competition and writing a dramatic poetry. The next step I took that was very memorable for me was in university. I got into university, even though I wasn't a very hardworking student. My parents were really happy, because I'm one of the first ones in the family to be able to get into a local university. But when I was choosing the course that I want to enroll in, I chanced upon theatre studies. And at that time, theatre studies was very new, very, very new, right? I think I was probably the second cohort. And I told my parents that I want to take theatre studies. They were really disappointed because they were hoping that I would take something more practical, like mathematics or economics, or even social sciences, etc. But, I was quite insistent on taking theatre studies. Didn't know why. Maybe because, at the back of my brain, there was this, the idea that I won a literature competition when I was 12. So I want to further that on and see how far I can push myself. So I took theatre studies in university. I did face a lot of, discouragement from friends, from families, but I had wanted to try it anyway. So it was one of the best times in my life, in university doing theatre studies. I'm not doing theatre now, but I would say that actually a lot of the skill sets that I've learned in theatre really, really helped me through life. It's given me the confidence to speak. It's given me creativity that I can use to tackle any of work-life challenges. It's given me the idea of teamwork and collaboration because, in theatre studies and when you put up a show, you're not alone and you are working with a team. So it's given me a lot of soft skills that I could use very well later in life. So I think the step up in confidence to pursue what I really want to do actually really helped me very much in life. So that's me. That's me here in a kabuki show, and that's me in this white face makeup in a kimono, and that's me here in the papers as well in the middle here. Okay. But of course, when you go out to work, that's the third step that I took, right? I had to step into the real world, and I worked real hard. So I was very fortunate. I went to a big company. First started with National Geographic Channel, and then it became Fox, and Fox was one of the biggest entertainment channels group, even in Singapore. And at its peak, I was looking after 40 TV channels in Singapore. Of course, TV channels today, it's like bygone era. We all depend on Netflix and Disney Plus, etc. now. But there was a time when we actually run home when we want to catch an 8 p.m. show and a 9 p.m. show. So I entered, I didn't go into theatre because I also learned after graduation that actually in theatre, I may not be able to make enough money to pay off my tuition loans. So I do need something a little bit more practical. So my first job was actually in journalism, working for a magazine, but I was there only for a short time. But after that, I managed to land myself in quite a big company that actually gave me a lot of good opportunities to grow further and to hone my skills further. Even in that company, although I worked really hard, I enjoyed myself very much. I think, the reason why I worked so hard was because I feel that I have a point to prove. I chose to study theatre studies. So I had to show my relatives that I can become something, I can become someone, I can become successful. So I really put myself to the grind every day, and I was in the company for about 14 years before I left my corporate job. But National Geographic Channel and Fox entertainment channels, they actually really pushed me in many ways for the better. I believe it really helped me grow, but it also allowed me to step out of my comfort zone. So that's another step that it's very memorable for me. And I say it's a step out of my comfort zone because I am someone who would never even move out of the western side of Singapore. I've lived in Clementi, I've lived in West Coast. I'm always living in the west side of Singapore. And the idea that I would pack my bag and relocate to a new country is very terrifying for me. But I made the move. I was given a promotion, I think, in year 2008. And the promotion meant that I had to move to Hong Kong. So my husband was really nice. He was willing to move with me, and we had only one child then. So we packed the child, we packed our bags, and we moved to Hong Kong. We were there for 2 years. And this was a very interesting experience. You know, for like I mentioned, for someone who has never moved out of the western side of Singapore to move to a completely different country, learning Cantonese, you know, learning about their culture. You may think that it's also an Asian country, very Chinese, could be very similar to Singapore, but when you live there, it's actually a very different thing. When you have to live there and work there, it's a very, very different thing. Well, then the next step of faith, and you can see how one step always leads to another, right? This was a very, very huge step of faith I took in 2014. So you heard me talk about how I love my job in National Geographic Channel. I gave up that dream job and I moved to the UK with the family. So in 2014, my husband had wanted to pursue further studies. And at that time, I felt that I met a crossroad, you know. So for many working moms, you may know, if you can have your work and you can have your family and you could juggle everything at the same time, good and well, but there may come a time when you may not be able to do so. So at that time, I was at a crossroad where I had to choose whether to follow my husband and let him pursue his dream, or to insist to stay back in Singapore and do a job which I love. So I had to decide. And I decided that it would be family, of course, you know, and I gave up my job of 14 years, my colleagues that I really love a lot. And we took our bank accounts, we took everything that we had, and we moved to the UK with the family. That time we have 2 kids already. So why did I say it's a step of faith? Like I mentioned, you know, we weren't on any scholarship. we weren't on any grants or anything. So we know that if we move there, we had to be on our own. We had to rely on our savings, and we don't know when we can or will move back, and we don't know anybody in UK. Unlike the move to Hong Kong, where I was moving there, supported by my company, paid by a company, you know, with relocation, logistics all sorted out, we have to do this all by ourselves, right? And we have 2 young kids then. One was 4 and the other one was 8. So it was a big step of faith to actually say, yes, we will go as a family and we will make this work. But if you look at every step that I'm sharing with you now, you can actually see how one builds up to the other. Without that smaller step of moving to Hong Kong, I think I may never say yes to moving to UK. But I think because we have made that one small step to move to Hong Kong already, something inside us tells us that it's okay. We can move further away and we can do a more drastic change. So that was I felt an ultimate step of faith that I took in 2014. And the thing is, you know, I gave up one dream. I thought I gave up one dream, but in that journey, in that 4 years living in UK, I was rewarded with many new dreams and new experiences. So I was a stay-home mom mostly. So you see, there's a picture of me cooking in the kitchen there. That's what I do most of the time, 3 meals a day. That, when I say it's a new experience, is really a new experience because I was brought up with a very good mom who cooks every meal. And then when I got married and have kids in Singapore, it's usually with a helper. So I never really had to venture into the kitchen very much. So at close to 40 years old, when we moved to UK, I finally learned how to cook. And it was a very, very intimidating experience, much more intimidating than what I had to do behind desktop at work. So there I was, you know, being a homemaker. But I also took the chance because we were living in Oxford, you know, in a university town that's probably one of the best in the world. I took the chance to further my learning experiences as well. So I took up some courses with the Syed Business School there. I also enrolled myself into another night course called Politics, Business and the Common Good, which was another step that I took. I think, you know, that actually led me to what I'm doing today. A very, very, very good step that we took. It's also buying a puppy in UK. You can see that picture over there. A very, very cute puppy that we bought. Almost looked like a soft toy, but it's a real living creature. It's still in my house today. We bought a puppy in UK, and this puppy, this dog, became my kids' first friend when they had to come back to Singapore in 2018. So I've talked about all these different steps, right? And you can really see, I hope you can really see that it's step by step. You know, it's taking one step at a time, to not projecting too far ahead, but taking one step at a time and doing each step well to get to where I am today. And today, you know, I've moved back to Singapore in 2018. And at that time, I know that if I ever move back to Singapore, I want to come back and I want to contribute back to Singapore. I don't want to be one of those complaining Singaporeans who always compare how good other countries are and how bad Singapore is, but I want to come back and I want to serve Singapore. So that's where I am now. That was actually Temasek Shophouse under construction, and over there you can see the tagline that says working together for the greater good. So it's a very, very meaningful job, and I'm actually, yeah, just liking it every day. So I'm coming to the end of my slides. If I were to give people some advice on what to do as a young person and how to eventually end up doing what you like, I would say you have to really take it one step at a time. You know, it's difficult to plan when you are 12, when you're 14, when you're 16, what you will ultimately do when you're 40 or 45. In fact, you know, if you ask a 25-year-old, if you ask a 30-year-old, some of them are still doing experiments in life, and they're still, you know, try and error and trying to find out whether that's something else that they like better than what they do now. And it's okay. So I've learned these few things, right? I've learned, number one, that it's okay to play catch up. Remember the story that I mentioned about how I didn't speak English at primary 1, and you know, I could end up winning a literature competition a few years later. I could end up taking literature, linguistics, and theatre studies in the university in Singapore. I could end up getting a decent job, one that I like, and I could end up not disappointing my parents. So I also apply this to my kids as well, right? So some of you parents who are listening in, I was really fearful for my kids when I brought them to the UK, because I'm bringing them out of the Singapore education system. What's going to happen when they come back, right? So the truth is, it was very punishing for a while when they came back. I actually threw them back into the mainstream schools in Singapore. And as you know, the mainstream schools are not easy. They suddenly had to deal with 听写, spelling, and, you know, quarterly exams and all that. But they caught up. You know, I have to say now, on hindsight, you know, just looking back at what they have experienced 4 or 5 years ago when we came back, they have caught up now, and I think they have learned grit and resilience along the way. So it's okay. It's okay to play catch up. The second thing that I've learned is we must have the courage to choose what we like. So the story of how I insisted on taking theatre studies, even though friends and family were not very encouraging. I think, you know, you must know what you like, and you must have the courage to go on the path that you like, and take, of course, take advice from people that you love, but ultimately you need to be responsible and accountable for your own life and the path that you are taking. And having said that, right, that goes to that point. After choosing what you like, there's no bed of roses. You have to work hard. There are no shortcuts. So the 14, 15 years that I spent in the media world was a testament to how hard I had to work to get to where I am. And there are no shortcuts. I also think that, you shouldn't be afraid to try something new. So I've mentioned in my stories, that every step, it's a little bit different. When I entered National Geographic Channel and Fox Entertainment channels, my first role there was actually in sales. And for someone who took theatre studies and literature, who it's more word focused than numbers focused, it was a huge challenge for me. And I remember my boss then there was once he was quite upset with me, and he said, how come you can never remember your sales targets and your numbers and all that? And you have to always try so hard to recall. And I told him that it was a lot easier for me to remember Shakespeare, to remember quotes, from books rather than numbers. And I had to write all these numbers down on a piece of paper and keep it in my pocket every day to remember them. But yeah, don't be afraid to try something new. I also realized that we don't have to be too hard on ourselves. There are different seasons in life, and we should really try to enjoy each one of them. So, for me, the season in UK as a homemaker, I tried a little bit of doing business on my own as well. So as a small entrepreneur, that season, it's completely 180 degrees different from my season as a very ambitious career woman who was climbing the corporate ladder. Very, very different seasons in life. And it's okay to reinvent yourself along the way and to try and enjoy each season. And the last thing here that I want to say, which I really believe in, right? We need to be passionate in what we do, and we need to give it our best shot. So I've mentioned all the different memorable milestones in my life, but in each one of them, I recall giving it my best shot. When I was writing that dramatic poetry and entering myself a competition, I was giving it my best shot. When I was working as a career woman, I was giving it my best shot. Even when I was moving to UK and I had to cook 3 meals a day, each meal was my best shot at giving something nice and nutritious to my family. So try to give it your best shot in whatever you do. This is one of the books that I really like, but I'm not saying you have to read this book, but I'm saying that this quote on the book, this title on the book, it's what I want to leave you with. And here it says, if you want to walk on water, you've got to step out of the boat, right? So some of us may be very familiar with a biblical story of Peter walking on the water to go to Jesus, but that's the image, right? That this title of the book is trying to suggest, that if you want to walk on water, if you expect anything good, if you expect a miracle, you've got to first step out of the boat. I took some creative license here in changing the word from get to step in order to align with the theme of the day. But yes, so this I leave with you. Okay, that's the end of my presentation. Thank you so much for listening. I'm here to answer any questions that you may have. Someone asked, what are the challenges you face as a general manager? So as a general manager of any business, I was a general manager when I left Fox and National Geographic Channel as well. So as a general manager, you have to, number one, be very good with your profit and losses. You're managing a company, right? So you need to be aware of its P&L. We call it P&L, right? How much money do you have? How much money you're making? How much money are you spending? Are you spending them the right way? Are there new and innovative ways to make money? So those are some of the key challenges that you face every day, because money is not infinite, right? So there's a certain pot that you are tasked to manage, and you have to manage them well. That's one. The other one is you're often dragged in different directions in your everyday work, right? So one of my colleagues could be facing an issue because a VIP has come into the shop house and needs some special attention and a special tour of the very nice shop house, and I have to be there. And then the next minute, someone, a co-worker could be telling me that some furnitures need fixing and the lights are flickering in the shop house, and I have to get my operations team to look at all these building issues. And the next minute you may be needing to sit at your desktop because you are preparing a presentation for the board meeting the next day. So you are actually dragged in different directions as a general manager. So those are some of the challenges. Someone asked, why are you working in Temasek Shophouse? I think it's a very serendipitous opportunity that I had as well. When I first came back to Singapore in 2018, and I was looking for a job that allowed me to contribute back to Singapore and serve the community, this opportunity, this chance just happened that in Temasek, they were actually building a social impact hub, and they needed someone to come and imagine what this hub is going to be and to run its operations. So I took the challenge and I took the opportunity to run it. So a lot of times, it's also keeping your eyes peeled for opportunities that you think you can have some relevant skill sets for. Theatre studies, next question. Theatre studies was useful to you. How about the rest of the uni? Do you think the course you picked in uni went to waste because you aren't doing anything related to it? Oh, not at all, not at all. I took theatre studies, I majored in theatre studies, but I also took up English literature. I also took up linguistics. I also took up philosophy as a minor elective for one of the years, and none of them went to waste, because I feel that everything that you learn in life, you can actually apply the skills and the thinking and the discipline behind it to anything that you do in life. So of course, sometimes the first bridge could be more critical, so I mentioned about how my very, very first job, I was actually working as a journalist. So writing, was a useful skill that I picked up when I took literature, when I took linguistics. So even until today, sometimes I go through a passage and the instinct of correcting the comma, the full stop, and the past tense and the future past tense and all that all comes into play, right? Because you've got that discipline already. So nothing ever come to waste. Learning is never wasted. Oh, you seem to have a lot of inner motivation. How did that come about? Or were you just like that? Would also love to know if you have mentors growing up. Good question. Good question. Inner motivation, I do have a lot of that. I do. I think part of it is personality, I have to say, right? Part of it is personality. I have a lot of zest for life. I have a lot of passion for life. I'm always trying to learn new things, get to know new people, etc. So I think that comes quite natural to me. But I think it's also pushing yourself to try and embrace that season that I mentioned, right? Whatever you do. And sometimes it's a vicious cycle, the more you talk about it, the more you try to like it, the more you do it, actually, the more you love it. It's like that. It's love needs to also come with action and deeds. And the more deeds and action you have, the more love you have. Love is a muscle. I think we all need to remember that it's a muscle. And if you don't exercise that, it will become weakened, right? But if you exercise that and if you are pumping that a lot, actually it grows stronger. So love for your work, love for your family, love for anything in life, you've got to keep nurturing that. Do I have mentors growing up? not in my very young years, but I would say that, you know, I tend to also look out for people who can inspire me along the way. Yeah, I mean, you know, actually off the top of my head, I can safely say there were probably 2 or 3 people who really inspired me, and sometimes I go to them for advice when I meet difficulties in life. What did you aspire to be when you were young? Is it related to your job now? Good question. I think my first ambition was to be a bus driver. I really, really wanted to be a bus driver because I think, you know, every time when I was young and I take this bus, right? And I would think that, wow, like this guy, it's at the steering wheel, and when he moves, everyone moves, and he gets us to our destination, and he's one man, but he's in control of such a big bus, you know, and I really wanted to be a bus driver. So it's completely not related to my job now, if you think about that. But yeah, but maybe I like to take the steering wheel, if you think of it philosophically, and I like to drive people to a certain destination in life together, maybe, if you take that philosophically. Too much of a stretch, Don. Okay. Okay. That's a question here. Don also wanted to be a bus driver. Okay. Okay, hang on, let me read this question. What was the biggest or most impactful criticism you faced, and how did you overcome it? Okay, very good questions. Even in the journeys that I've described earlier on, right, there were 2 very significant steps that I took despite criticism. So one, like I mentioned, was the step that I took to do theatre studies in uni, because, you know, it's really just not a very economical, very practical coursework that one can land herself in, right? And like I said, you know, I took it anyway. You know, I put in a lot of hard work into my job just to prove a point that I can still be successful, I can still make it. So it comes with a lot of hard work. Actually, the second biggest criticism, or most hurtful criticism I faced in life, was actually the step that I took to give up my job and move to the UK with my husband. And it's funny, but, you know, I think at that point, at that time, right, 2013, 2014, I was the general manager of Fox, and I was leading 42 TV channels in Singapore. And if you look across the media landscape in Singapore at that time, most of the big bosses in those companies are Caucasian men, very, very few local Asian women leading media companies. It's an industry that's dominated by a lot of men as well. So to get to where I was and to give it up, I actually faced a lot of criticism from people in the industry. People who told me that, you know, you don't know what you are doing. You know, what does this signal? It's, you know, women should never give up their job for their husband. You need to stand for your own rights. You are really weak, you know, when you are trying to play a secondary role at home. What are you going to do in the UK? You're going to be a nobody. You know, here you're respected because you've got a name card, and when you go to the UK, you'll be nobody. I face a lot of criticism. Someone even told me to my face that I was shamed to career woman, you know, for someone who would just give it up and follow the husband. I find that very hurtful. Yeah, it was a tough time, but you know, I did it anyway, because like I said, right, sometimes you've got to put your money where your mouth is. So if you say that family comes first, your action has got to prove it. So I did it anyway. And it's become the best thing I've ever done in my life. You know, the 4 years that I spent supporting my husband in UK with my 2 kids, you know, just going to the playground, walking along the canal, seeing cows and horses, you know, and wildlife easily. It's just the most magical thing for a mother, right? So I really appreciated that 4 years that I spent there. Okay. Good drivers. I'm a very bad driver, actually. Okay. Hang on, let's see. Someone asked, have you found yourself in situations where you lost your motivation or that it waned, and how did you overcome it? Wow, really, really good question here. Yes. In UK, because like I say, it was actually a very drastic move, right? From a career woman to a homemaker and to running my own small business. It wasn't easy. I've failed so many times. I've tried to grow a small home business and it didn't work. And there were so many times when I was just on the sofa crying, and not knowing whether I made the right choice. But I think, someone told me before that you should just have faith and just show up. Even that, it's a step. It's a big step. Just show up.
Sorry, I'm 11 years old this year. What advice would you give me?
Okay. That's what advice? So much, right? But I think if you want to remember something, maybe this is a page that that can be some good advice for you. But you are really young, and the world is really up to you to imagine. Don't be afraid to pursue dreams. One of the reasons why my husband and I packed up in 2014 to go to the UK, despite being really comfortable here in Singapore, it's also because we wanted the opportunity to show our kids that it's okay to pursue your dream. My husband had wanted to do a PhD from young. It has been his dream since he was 16. But after that, of course, you get on with life, you get married, you have kids, you have jobs, and you sort of forgot actually what you really wanted to do when you were 16. So we decided when he turned 40 that we're just going to pursue that dream no matter what. And we wanted to show the kids that it's okay. It's okay to pursue your dream at 40. It's okay to be the oldest student in class. And we went ahead to do that. And like I said, it's turned out to be the best thing. So I would say don't be afraid to choose what you like to do in life. Just give it your best shot. In fact, actually, when you choose the things that you like to do in life, you tend to excel in it because you like it anyway, right? And you're having fun doing it. And when you have fun doing it, you tend to be really good at it. Okay. Someone here asked me about my son's plans for uni. It's a long way to go. He still has got many years to explore what he wants to do. So I'm leaving it up to him.
Okay. Maybe a question for as a fellow parent, right? Like Singapore is so kiasu, and we try to box our children in, and we say that, you study this because in our mind, we hope that their study will be pegged to their employment and pegged to their prospects, right? What are the detriments of this kind of mindset? How does life experience help to, help us alleviate some of that fear?
Yeah. Well, I do think that, of course, in some professions, you probably need that earlier on strict academic discipline and knowledge, right? I mean, if you want to be a doctor, you can't, well, at least in Singapore, it's hard to choose to become one only when you're 45, right? Or if you want to do finance, then it's probably very difficult if you start off like me doing theatre studies. So I think there's some professions that you do need that academic discipline for, but mostly, in a lot of professions, and I'm sure, in Dawn's guest speaker series, right, in many professions, that the world is really much larger than what we see beyond the academic subjects offered in school today. So I would say, as parents, we should think about the skill sets that they can gather in school or in home learning. Just think about the skill sets like resilience, adaptability, grit, social skills. Learning about these skills are probably more important than a particular coursework. And like I mentioned, right, I think as long as you choose a coursework that you think you have an interest in today, you will probably excel in it, because you're not forced to do something that you don't like. If you are choosing something that you like, there's actually more possibility that you will excel.